Hey, um, that's an awkward start. I'm Xenos. If this is your first video, this is a channel where I do live readings of my poems, explore creativity and my thoughts in general, and potentially I'm thinking about doing poetry workshops, things that can help people grow as writers, and if it helps you in general as creativity, then perfect. But anyways, um, I recorded this whole video, and there was someone vacuuming, and so the video was ruined. So 2.0, baby. Um, yeah, so I'm going to talk about my process as a poet a bit. So for me, I um I take a good bit of time to write a poem that I really like. I should say it takes a good bit of time. Um, because usually for me, they're very emotionally inspired. So I'll be feeling some type of feeling for a good 7 hours of a day for said poem. So, for example, Tempest, when I wrote Tempest, I remember one, I was a bit in a rush, which is why it maybe fits the idea of a storm, like just chaos and rah storm and rah, ah. But when I wrote Tempest, I felt like there was so much chaos in my life and so much destruction and there's this like whole. It just felt like the world around me was swirling, and I felt like in that moment I had become a storm. I was living in a storm. And so when I began to write Tempest, I thought to myself, I, Tempest, the storm, come. Um, and it's almost like an aspect of my personality at this point. Tempest. What I kind of do is I split myself into different personalities. So, as a creator in general, my name is Z. I call myself Xenos. And for me, Xenos, which is just Greek for stranger, I keep using it. I really like the word. Um, Xenos is very befitting of me because I feel as though I am a stranger. I feel very not socially outcast per se, but I feel like I talk pretty often, very much like I am now. I'm like, let me talk. I'm not like, hey, you watched the Red Sox game and go Dallas Cowboys. Like I'm just not very much that type of person. And there's nothing wrong with that person per se. Um, a lot of my friends are those who are like very much socially like good. Like they're like, oh yeah. My best friend, he's really good at social situations, and I'm just like, hi, I'm a wallflower. Unless you want like we can talk about like life and like hope and dreams and like space and what it means to be alive and like what's the purpose in existence and like that's who I am. Which you don't even have to be that person to write poetry. It's just who I am. But yeah, quick tangent. I forgot where I started from. Oh yeah. So Tempest, I felt like I was a storm at that moment, and I still feel that part of myself. I still feel like Tempest is a part of me. So I wrote Tempest. I thought, Tempest, and then I began to explore more. Where does this storm come from? Where do this storm around me feels? Is it from things people have done to me, or is it from me suppressing things that I feel, or is it perhaps the rage that comes from not being able to to release, whether it be sorrow, anger, joy? Is it the anger of suppression? And so I just began to write what I felt in a very like metaphorical way. So it goes like I, Tempest, the restless and relentless. I can't remember the third line. I'm awful at memorizing my poems, y'all. But the restless and relentless line, for example, is how I feel. Like I feel like I can't stop. And I can't rest. I feel like I guess in context to the poem a bit is those first few lines feel like I wrote them in the sense that as a speaker, because I'm very much a speaker in that poem, I felt like I couldn't rest or relax until I began to explore myself, until I felt fulfilled, until I could find purpose, until I found this and this and this, and I felt like I was this storm that just was going and carving my path, regardless of what it does to me. I continue forward, regardless of the pain that it causes and all those type of things. But that's more of who I am as a poet, you know. I do work with prompts pretty often. I have like a prompt jar type thing where I wrote down like 300 prompts, or typed them up really, and I was like, boom, today we're gonna write using this poetic device, or boom, we're gonna write based on this prompt. So for example, I don't have it with me down here, but the other day I pulled one for a simple thing like juggle, which juggling is where you take two things, and so for example, gotta think of a good poem that uses juggling. Can't think of it off the top of my head. The one I can only think of is Rubber, where I can't remember her name, but basically this female poet, she she talks about a tire breaking and a condom breaking, and she juggles rubber, you know. So that's something I pulled the other day out of my jar. I was like, I'm gonna juggle a fan, juggling fan and paper. How? I'm still working on it, but it's coming along pretty nicely. And that's how I kind of do it for myself. Is I give myself prompts, or I give myself inspiration, or I also listen to a lot of music. I mean, I listen to music a good like 10 hours of the day, whether it's when I'm cooking, cleaning, reading, working out, or just chilling. I listen to music, mostly because I just like music, but it's also a good mood setter, you know. But anyways, that's me as a writer, and I kind of want to talk more about if you're thinking about writing poetry. You don't have to have some crazy inspiration. You don't have to have crazy metaphors. You don't have to write tempest, restless, relentless. You know, it's a bit obnoxious to me sometimes the way I come off. You can literally write a poem saying like just literally going on about like, you broke my heart and left me in the dark, and now I have no more light, and I don't know where to start. That's a fine enough 4-line poem, you know? You don't have to be super deep and metaphorical. You don't have to make it super complex. In fact, I think complex poetry can sometimes be very confusing. I've had problems where some of my poems have not gotten across clear, and that is on me as a poet because I didn't make my ideas and thoughts clear. But if you're thinking about writing poems, go for it. Chase it. Do it. I mean, what's the worst that can come from it? And if you want to write a poem about heartbreak, and I have found that there has been times that I've written poems about me being hurt and angry, and then I ripped them up or burned them or something. And it's kind of like saying goodbye to those emotions, to that feeling, to that relationship, to whatever it was that makes you angry or sad. You don't have to keep the things you write. You can write them into existence and then erase them. They are your words, your thoughts, your feelings, your creations, and you own those things. You owe them to no one. You only owe them to yourself. And if you wish to keep it, then you keep it. That's your choice, you know? But if you're thinking about writing poetry, I would say start by just writing your thoughts in a series of lines. Write more than less. Why? Because if you write more, you can cut more out. I've written poems that look like novels. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know I was writing fiction today. But I've written poems that, I mean, have been like 1,600 words, and then I've cut them down to 200, which is still pretty long. But that's just me as a poet. I usually write really long poems because I'm just like, I have to really explain my ideas. The metaphors have to be 50 pages long. They have to be big and huge and everywhere. Um, that's just who I am, you know. But I would say, and you know, I am not. Let me be clear here. I have never taught poetry. I have never instructed a class on poetry, but I have, on a couple occasions, workshopped with people, and um, I have a group that I workshop with online, and you know, we kind of share feedback and we kind of support each other through like, oh, you should maybe. I wonder if you did this. You should maybe change that. I think that's a little harsh. Um, and so with that, I feel like I maybe have some very, very, very tiny experience with writing poetry as a poet. But yeah, I mean, I tell a lot of people that who ask me about it, which is like, in my my workshop group, we have a couple of new people, and they're like, well, I don't feel like my poems are real poems, and I think there's no such thing as fake poetry. Like what? How can a poem be fake? In my opinion, if you're just writing down how you feel and it sounds more like a journal blog and you want to call it poetry, there's some devices that have to be poetic. I mean, there's ideas, but I mean, like poetry's don't the poem doesn't have to rhyme every time. In fact, I used to be very much like a rhyme every line and put it on the dime and blah, you know, and I used to do that as a poet. And then someone's like, "This sounds childish," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize this." And then people were like, "Yeah, well, when you rhyme on every line, it's Dr. Seuss like, you know, one fish, two fish, blue fish, red fish." I hope that's right. Um, but it can sound. I think free form poetry is one of my favorite, where you just write. You don't have to worry about, you know, is your stanza so long? Are your lines this? For example, I can't think of it. Is it a san? I can't remember it. But there's a type of poem where you write and you use the last six words of each line as the first six words of the next stanza. And they have to keep cycling. And it's interesting. I think it's a fun experiment. It's good challenges if you're trying to write something and you want to give yourself like a parameter. But if you're new to poetry, just freeform it, in my opinion. Especially if you're wanting to write and there's something stopping you, I'm telling you now, just do it. I think I get so stupidly excited when someone's like, "Hey, I wrote a poem." I am like a puppy. I'm like, "You wrote a poem? Oh my god. Would you share it? Do you feel comfortable sharing it? If you feel comfortable sharing it, thank you. If you don't, I'm glad to hear you writing poetry." Like, I am such a poetry fan. I am like, please, please write more, write more. Um, and there's a couple of people I've met through classes, through poetry readings that I'm like, oh, you're a god. Like, what? Like, this is your first time reading? No way. That's crazy. And that sounds very fabricated, but it's not. Like, I get so stupidly excited. Like, oh god, it's exciting. I think it's exciting. Hearing people's metaphors and the fact that they feel comfortable enough to share something personal. Um, and you know, not every poem is personal. Maybe I've read a couple of books and I've written poems that are more distant from myself. You know, where I, this poet, have distanced myself from the poem. But even so, I think it's exciting. It's like watching a new show or reading a good book or finding a new song. I think it's the same feeling for me. But anyways, this is just more introductory video and me just rambling a bit because I wanted to make another video and I wasn't really sure of what to do. Yeah, Mr. Perfect over here. But I guess on a little note, again, I want to say thank you. I'm very grateful for anyone watching these videos. Whether you watch 1 minute to 15 to 10, either way, it's deeply appreciated. And you know what? For the hell of it, let's read one more poem. I gotta set the whole thing up again. Let's see. We are going to read. Let's read a poem I haven't shared yet. Not online, not a poetry reading. This is gonna be a brand new poem. that I haven't shared yet. I think.
I haven't read it in person.
Been quarantined. It's impossible to read it to people in person. Well, I could do an online reading like I am, but I haven't done it yet. Anyways, I've even workshopped it. This poem is called A Wandering Flame I Am. And that's just the first line. A wandering flame I am. Across the land I burn, searching the seven seas, scorching the ocean floor.
I leave cinders and ash in my wake,
so that no other may take the path I create. Fire and flame I am, trouble and turmoil. Where I exist, darkness recoils.
This fire is sky
blue and titanium white. Zealots sing, I am divinity,
destroyer of sins in thee. I am nothing more than light,
for those who find themselves succumbing to the long night.
Seekers of eye, who indulge too much, know me as the devourer of their sight.
I go by two names, Ignis and Pyra. They are one and the same, and though I am never solid, I remain unchanged.
There is no control within my soul.
Burn all that I may, lay waste upon the lands I taste. I am a reluctant conqueror.
I do not wish to consume as I do, and yet death lingers for my eventual doom. For the conclusion to this journey, surely he waits to wallow in the last
breath of my flames. Fire has no morality, it lives within its own reality,
evading the temporality of its life, praying it may continue crafting its light.
So that poem's a work in progress. I haven't really gave it a title per se, and a lot of the metaphors are like very unpolished. Well, not unpolished, but it's an unpolished poem. Not workshop. That's a rough draft.
First draft, y'all.
I like it, and it's very metaphorical and this and that, and that's just my style. But yeah. I guess we're gonna cut this video here, yeah?
Still, it's gonna take a while for me to figure out
these endings, so you're gonna have to bear with me. And these intros. But hey, if you've watched a 17-minute video, because these videos are surprisingly quick and easy to make, I'm sorry. And thank you. But yeah, this is Xenos, and keep writing. Thank you.